Well, Hoops did the switch up. Ollie got his stock up, and Cowboy Wrestling put $10K in G.I.A. to remember the seniors, to celebrate landing the number 3 ranked wrestler in America when number 1 now has us in his final 4.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're brought to you by FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is almost here. There's not a better way for us to celebrate together than with FanDuel. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 back in bonus bets. Make sure that you download the app or head on over to FanDuel.com to get started today. Meanwhile, we get started in the conversation of Cowboy Wrestling, putting 10,000 plus, 10,500 for the last home duel of the season against the number 20 ranked Missouri Tigers. And Mizzou came crawling in with half a lineup, so it wasn't expected to be super close, but it was a complete, absolute domination the entirety of the event. This is a good time for Oklahoma State to peek back to some of these seniors that have kind of been the catalyst for David Taylor in year one. I think us as Oklahoma State fans, we couldn't have anticipated us getting this good this fast, even though we have a very high bar here at Oklahoma State for what is acceptable in the sport of wrestling, which is why we even decided to move on from the legendary Coach John Smith to the up-and-coming guy who helped Penn State become the perennial powerhouse that they are now, and David Taylor. This is going to be a little bit of a project before we can cut down the Penn State tree, just like it was a project for them in getting Cale Sanderson to start cutting down the Oklahoma State tree. Likewise, it's going to be comparable for us here. But this first season under Coach David Taylor, you've seen some guys get better. You've seen some guys show more fight, show more offensive capabilities. I think none more so than Dustin Plott. Dustin Plott has always been one of the top wrestlers in the country, going back to high school. But we were going to remember him for this latest run. Last year, he was the national runner-up, which means he was very close to a national title. He didn't have the offensive prowess to get a natty. Now, this season, is he going to be able to top Carter Starocci? Probably not, but he is putting himself in a position to have the capability to possibly do that simply because of the offensive prowess that David Taylor's been able to bring alongside of him. I think that can also be said for the guy who I find the most exciting other than Wyatt Henderson this year, and that's Dean Hamady Jr. He absolutely dominated his dude by tech fall 19-4. It really didn't even need to get into the third period, but Dean was having some fun, and we appreciate him for that. None more so than Luke Serber. Luke Serber at 197 has been kind of the Iron Man for Oklahoma State. He'll go up in weight, he'll go down in weight, he'll wrestle wherever, he'll do whatever, and this season has been absolutely phenomenal for him. So it's so refreshing to see this team be offensively significantly better in year one. That is something that David Taylor was supposed to bring to this Cowboy wrestling squad, and he's easily done so. Wyatt Hendrickson, of course, outside of Dean Hamady Jr., is my favorite dude. Most everybody in the country, if you bleed any level of orange or you appreciate the sport of wrestling, everybody has a lot of admiration for what Wyatt Hendrickson has been able to do at Oklahoma State. Getting a pin against a top 25 wrestler in just under a minute is absolutely insane. And then you've got guys like Caleb Fish that was going to redshirt this season because he wasn't going to be the main guy at 157. That was going to be Teague Travis. But Teague Travis has an injury, and Caleb Fish ends up, battling throughout the course of the season. He's had some moments this season where he's had some massive upsets that we didn't saw coming. We've also had some moments this season where we didn't know exactly what we were going to get out of him. But more often than not, it's been a very phenomenal experience. Now, we had a young guy get in, Coulter Burton, because Tegan Jamison evidently has a little bit of an injury bug. We don't know if that's something that's going to be prolonging, but he actually had a very valiant attempt at 141 because he was going up against one of the top 5 wrestlers in America. So it was a good showing for Colter Burton being one of the young guys to help in the transcendence of this next iteration of Cowboy wrestling. Reese Whitcraft got himself a W, which is really nice to see on senior night for him in Gallagher-Iba Arena. Troy Bradley opened things up with a W as well. It was close. It was close throughout most of the match, but he was able to secure a major decision to get this thing kicked off for Oklahoma State. Carter Young, he is a Stillwater, Oklahoma guy, and him getting a dub in this fashion is a pretty big deal. All in all, the only dude who really you could even make a proclamation of being somewhat underwhelming would have been maybe Colter Burton, but a major decision as a freshman going up against a top 15 wrestler in the country and Josh Edmond. It's something to hang your hat on. Just like this recruiting process is something that Oklahoma State needs to get a little bit deeper into to get the most out of Cowboy wrestling, to put us back where we're supposed to be. And we did land the number 3 ranked pound for pound wrestler in America and the number 1 ranked wrestler in Iowa. So it's nice to dip into their backyard. And we were able to land the services of Dreshaun Ross, who is a 6'3", 195-pound linebacker / defensive end / tight end, running back, wide receiver. And he carries a lot of recruiting acumen in football. Look at this list of offers he has in just football, not wrestling. Iowa, Iowa State, Kansas State, Michigan, Minnesota, Missouri, Nebraska, Purdue, Wisconsin. And that is just the football side of things, because the athleticism is going to jump off the chart. So for us to tiptoe into Iowa and still their top wrestler, the number 1 ranked wrestler in the state of Iowa, is a very big deal. But that also lends some credence to why Bo Bassett has made his decision to put Oklahoma State in the top 4. Now, Bo Bassett is one of the most, instrumental young guys in the sport of wrestling to give it a social media kind of space. And the things he's been doing with the cutting down the list of the recruiting and everything, it's been pretty remarkable. And now he puts Oklahoma State in the Final Four. This isn't a massive surprise. In talking to some people in the wrestling landscape, including some people down in the Penn State territory, the common consensus almost seems to be that Bo Bassett has Oklahoma State in his heart, Penn State in his head. Iowa comes with monetary capabilities that are really life-changing money. It is what it is. And now Jax Forrest doesn't have the same recruiting name that Bo Bassett does, but Bo Bassett has been, one of the first people you've seen really promote the recruiting process for wrestling and make teams kind of fight for his services. At one point in time, Jax Forrest was ranked number 1 pound for pound in the country. I think now it's Bo Bassett, but we landed number 3 in Dreshaun Ross. So we could get one of the other two, and it feels like that Virginia Tech is the other team in here that could potentially throw a wrench in some things for the services of Bo Bassett. But if you get Jax Forrest and you already have Dreshaun Ross, you're already in phenomenal company, and you're already in a really good position to get Oklahoma State back where it's supposed to be. But from a public standpoint, Bo is kind of in the same realm as the Ferrari legacy. And, of course, Oklahoma State was able to land AJ. We were able to land the services to some degree, or at least commitments from essentially all of them. But due to some of the antics from AJ on campus at Oklahoma State, the whole thing just ended up being an explosive, incendiary device that blew up on all of us. This is yet another situation, because Bo has 2 brothers that are younger than him that are going to be likely very capable to provide some of the same things that the Ferrari legacy family was supposed to be able to provide. So whomever lands him is going to likely put themselves in a position to be the barometers for wrestling moving forward because of this family aspect. We had the capabilities with the Ferraris, but due to the older brothers' discrepancies, it all kind of fell apart. This is going to be an opportunity for Bo to kind of do some of the same things. I really feel like Oklahoma State is squarely in the running here, but I also understand that Iowa has made an offer to both him and Jax that it's hard for anybody to turn down. And you could make the argument that it would be kind of ridiculous for either to turn down. But Bo has also said that he wants to be a legend. He wants to be part of something that is much bigger than himself and putting a school on the map. Well, Oklahoma State, Penn State, Iowa, they're already all on the map. So maybe that's perhaps where Virginia Tech factors in here. But speaking of factoring things in, you need to make sure that you're factoring in your pocketbook when it comes to this next Super Bowl celebration that you want to make sure that you're a part of in the best way possible. The best way for you to physically possibly do that is with FanDuel. The experience that you're going to get in Super Bowl 59 can only be enhanced by FanDuel. This is one game, two teams, crazy possibilities. There's not a better way for you to make the most out of every play than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the very first touchdown, who's going to be the MVP, who's going to win the coin toss, or who's going to get the next first down, FanDuel makes it easy for you to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the very final whistle. The live betting feature is going to allow you to stay involved no matter what is happening on the field, and the app is extremely easy for you to navigate. Knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 back in bonus bets for the Super Bowl is icing on the cake. Download the app or head on over to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score 200 bones back in bonus bets. That is with FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel because it is the official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59 and the NFL. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now we get to jump into some of the Senior Bowl activities and festivities. Now, they don't exactly make a distinguishment amongst themselves for statistics, but if you were able to watch some of the game, of course, Ollie Gordon essentially upped his draft stock by showing his versatility, as it did R.J. Harvey, as they both were able to throw some passes. But Ollie Gordon got the scoring kicked off with a nice drop in the bucket dime on the run from Dylan Gabriel as the pitch man over to another Big 12 fella in Jaden Higgins. So the old Big 12 to current Big 12 to old school Big 12 connection was pretty fun thing to see to begin the whole festivities. But one thing that I noticed that Robert Allen said in his write-up, which I completely agree with, is none of them, whether it be Ollie Gordon or Trey Rucker or Colin Oliver or Nick Martin, none of them did anything to hurt themselves when it comes to the draft stock. Of course, there's like a posterization moment for Trey Rucker, but that was Jack Besh, which we all know from watching him at TCU, is a phenomenal wide receiver who ended up winning the MVP and scoring the touchdown that inevitably won the ball game as time basically expired. So other than that posterization moment that he got from Jack Besh, he had a pretty good moment, pretty good moments throughout the course of the event. He had multiple tackles and was shown in different coverages. Nick Martin additionally had multiple tackles. Now, Nick Martin kind of made a case for himself throughout the Senior Bowl practices. And when it comes to the note-taking from scouts and things of that nature, most of that is done throughout the practice segments. And, of course, you want to have a big game when it comes to the Senior Bowl, but Ollie Gordon did lead his team in rushing yards, 9 carries, almost 35 yards. Obviously, he did have the touchdown passing as well. Nick Martin got in on several tackles, as did Trey Rucker, and Colin Oliver was able to scoop up a fumble that was pretty instrumental in helping their team kind of stay engaged and active in the role. So it was kind of nice to see Colin out there because I do know that he did tweak himself earlier on in the week, and he was in limited availability the last couple days of the Senior Bowl practices. So it was nice to see him get out there and at least get an opportunity, get up on the stat sheet, get yourself a fumble. And by and large, I think most of these guys did a pretty good job making sure that wherever their draft grade was currently being projected as, it was absolutely going to either get better or remain the same. Nobody went backwards, which is great news. this is a really good opportunity for Oklahoma State to get its name out there in a bigger standpoint. Now, one of the interesting things here is that SB Nation that did a write-up on the Steelers, they had Ollie Gordon as one of the top 8 draft risers through the Senior Bowl, but they also have had several write-ups about Ollie Gordon and how he's a perfect fit to become a Pittsburgh Steeler. He's the Rashard Mendenhall style of running back that they typically always covet. Even if you go back to the bus, Jerome Bettis, Le'Veon Bell had a somewhat punishing style of running capability as well. And then whenever you look at Najee Harris, that's pretty comparable of what Ollie Gordon brings to the table. They've been happy with Jaylen Warren for quite some time. Would it be cool to see 2 Cowboys sharing the backfield? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and pretend otherwise, but it's somewhat problematic for me because I feel like the Steelers and the Big Ben fiasco over Mason Rudolph, and Big Ben even was very open about having some disparaging things to say about James Washington. I just feel like the drama between Big Ben and Mason Rudolph affected James Washington negatively, which kind of derailed his career in the NFL. So perhaps maybe I'm just kind of holding grudges unnecessarily. Let me know down in the comment section. Would you like to see Ollie Gordon end up as a Pittsburgh Steeler and sharing the same backfield as his Oklahoma State buddy, Jaylen Warren? I wouldn't mind seeing it. Anytime you have 2 Cowboys together, I'm going to be excited. It's the same reason why I love watching the Ravens, because you're going to get a healthy dose of Tylan Wallace. More often than not, you're going to get a healthy dose of Justice Hill. More often than not, same can be said for the Panthers. You're going to get a very healthy dose of Chuba Hubbard. The Lions, you're obviously, typically, going to get a lot of Malcolm Rodriguez. And those are some of the things that I watch out for. The Miami Dolphins, I like watching Tyreek Hill and Emmanuel Ogbah doing their things together. So 2 guys, same spot. I'm okay with it. I would argue that the Steelers maybe shouldn't be the spot for 2 Cowboys to go together, because last time 2 Cowboys went to Pittsburgh together, it didn't end up very swimmingly for either of them. So I would kind of hate that. But the Steelers obviously are very invested in Ollie Gordon potentially being one of their guys. Now, Nick Martin, I do know that there was a lot of NFL teams that were very enamored by what he was able to do in the practices. Being the second fastest linebacker or tight end at the entirety of the event obviously speaks volumes. His ability to shut down running backs out of the backfield was very much on display. Trey Rucker's closing speed and his ability to kind of bang heads and get involved in the run department was obviously something that was paid attention to. Colin Oliver is always going to be listed to some degree as a tweener, right? It depends on what NFL system is going to be implemented defensively and where he's going to fit in that. Would he be perfect for a 3-4? Probably. Would he work great for a 4-3? Maybe not so much, right? So his draft stock is going to be somewhat contingent upon what the needs are of the team. Guys like Nick Martin and Ollie Gordon, and even to some degree Trey Rucker, they're going to be integral parts of the game planning no matter what. And I think the same could be said to some degree about Dalton Cooper. Dalton Cooper was able to put a lot on film while at Texas State, quite a bit on film at Oklahoma State, but this previous season was cut short when he was having the best season for any of our offensive linemen by and large. So it was kind of crappy to see him go down, especially when he did. But I think all of the Cowboys that already even mentioned did more than enough to boost their draft stock, or at worst case scenario, keep their draft stock where it is. Nobody did anything that was, glaringly, obviously bad. So nobody went down. And while we're trying to uptick Oklahoma State Cowboy football from a national branding, marketability perspective, we need as many NFL Cowboys to continue to carry that flag. We have several that are doing it right now, but you got to have more. You got to stay at the forefront of these young student athletes. And our guys did more than enough to kind of show that. So we get to switch gears here once again to basketball, and crazier things have happened in my life, but this is up there because the men's and women's teams decided to completely flip the script. So for that, we got to give a shout out to Cowboy basketball for getting a W, and doing so against a Utah team that made it look pretty effortless whenever they beat us in Salt Lake City. In Salt Lake City, it was slam dunk after slam dunk after slam dunk. We just couldn't stop them. So it was nice to see this game kind of go in reverse. Of course, it's always great to see Bryce Thompson get hot for over 20 points, 4 for 4 from shooting beyond 3-point range. Marcellus, Chi-Chi, Avery chipped in 17 points as well. As the Cowboys get a 9-point victory over the Utah Utes. Coming into the game, Utah was like 11th or 12th in the Big 12. Oklahoma State was 15th. So it's nice to kind of muddy the waters in the middle ground. And as we've discussed previously, we have enough capabilities to make things interesting and at least difficult on teams. The biggest thing has been protection of Gallagher-Iba Arena, and we did that. This was a home W. And our home record is still not all that bad. You could say that it's easily acceptable. But the Cowboys did a good job getting this W here, and we had some other guys chip in as well. Patrick Sumnick had one of his bigger games, just shot 1 point shy of double digits. Arturo Dean, also 1 point shy of double digits. Abu Usman had a quiet 8 points. Robert Jennings, the Texas Tech transfer, gets in there to bang down low a bit and throws in 6 points himself. When it came to rebounding, Bryce Thompson was also all over the place with 7 boards. Meanwhile, our big man, Abu Usman, ripped down 8 boards. And then Brandon Newman chipped in 4 rebounds as well. Kind of that the glue piece that runs all over the floor and does a little bit of everything is Brandon Newman. So shout out to Cowboys basketball, getting a W inside Gallagher-Iba. Those are the most important for me in year one. And it seems as though that sentiment has been heard by Steve Lutz and this crew. Now, the other side of it, and this is kind of frustrating because there were some clips and some things that J.C. Hoyt had said coming into this game about, how the Cowgirls don't play the same when they have a number next to their name when they're ranked in the top 25. And, we number 24 ranked Cowgirls took on the number 21 ranked West Virginia Lady Mountaineers, and we got absolutely dominated. Like, it's frustrating because you knew who West Virginia was, right? The Bob Huggins Press Virginia thing that he brought, it's become synonymous all across basketball, women's and men's, for West Virginia. That Press Virginia thing has now kind of become their calling card, and they did exactly that. And we look like we had not ever prepared for any semblance of full court pressure, and it got ugly. It got ugly quick. We shot 21% from the floor, which is easily the worst of the year. And we were really bad from 3-point range, like the worst we've had by far. Now, Staley Hurd was still able to kind of chip in and help us out in multiple areas. It was kind of her game because outside of Staley Hurd, we weren't able to really get a whole lot going. We were taking bad shots. We would go on droughts where we would miss multiple shots in a row. Like I said, men's and women's completely traded places here. So the whole night just was kind of ugly, and it uncharacteristic of cowgirl basketball. This is not what we have been seeing throughout the course of the season. So, of course, it's extremely surprising that the Cowgirls fall the way that they do. And now, it just muddies the water for the Big 12 title race, and it makes the upcoming games that we have much more important, and it makes the game against Kansas State absolutely massive because now there's a logjam that it's just getting tighter and tighter. And, of course, you want these in any sport, right? You want to have a nice race that means something for the conference championships. But I don't know that we all wanted it to be this tight. That was a game that we needed. If you want to win a Big 12 title, you got to take care of the ones on the road, and that didn't happen. So now we make life more difficult on ourselves because now we have to prepare for Kansas State. We have a few days to prepare, thankfully. But, yeah, we get a trip from K-State to Stillwater. Now, somehow we remained ranked. So it's still a top 25 matchup, number 25 Cowgirls versus the number 12 Lady Wildcats. And it's a must win. It's an absolute must-win if we're going to continue to have an opportunity to win a Big 12 title. This is the year, this is the time, especially when nobody thought this was going to take place. I think we were preseason ranked number 11. So being in the top 3 right now it's wonderful. But we're allowed to have high expectations for J.C. Hoyt. I think she wouldn't want it any different. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere, so happy you choose to be here. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. My podcast people out there, do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. All righty, y'all. Later, my taters.